As I get older, I'm so much more difficult to impress. Now, I've heard a lot of new material from bands that should have had that secret sauce, but instead rely on predictability to somehow get somewhere in this business. Recently, I discovered an amazing new group from the UK. Clearly, they are eager to fill the holes left behind by the great emo and hardcore bands that have come before them. Now, who is this band with a seemingly perfect mishmash of influences and genre-defying characteristic boldness? They are the UK Upstarts, as everything unfolds. After a few weeks of baking the band, I was able to snag an interview with songwriter and guitarist Adam Kerr. Adam is a great guy. He's kind, witty, a killer player with a real ear, and he knows how to write a catchy melody and a chugging riff. Basically, he's exactly how you want your child to grow up. Adam and I spent an hour together, really just enjoying a casual conversation about shared musical influence and experience. My only gripe comes from the fact that no matter what we did, we constantly dealt with an internet audio pipeline that just glitched as often as possible and dropped or hiccuped constantly. But hey, what you gonna do? We hope you enjoyed this interview with another future classic. This is my interview with Mr. Adam Kerr from As Everything Unfolds on the Rockstar Superhero Podcast.
What's the best version of me? So let's start this again.
From the top, people.
Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Kerr from As Everything Unfolds. The big power. Oh, this is fantastic. So let's just do something different. Let's not do the traditional question and answer game.
Okay.
And let's talk about the state of things. You already have so much to say about the band, and we'll get there. But something that just recently happened in the UK is Prince Philip died.
Yeah, man.
And in America, we had a famous rap star, DMX, recently pass away. And it made me think, how can I start this interview today and ask you a question that you've probably not heard or not heard in a while, which is, when you see icons in the industry and in culture pass away from an accidental death or just, growing old, how does that affect you as a young man? How does that affect your songwriting?
I feel like it's more like a reflective point of view, because you think one day maybe that'll be me, I'll be that person who's, taken from us too soon, as the case may be,
Right.
I suppose there's a bit of drive, to make your mark, like Prince Philip did, obviously slightly different kind of thing. Oh no, and DMX did in his lifetime, to leave your mark, and I suppose how short it can be taken away.
Yeah. Do you feel that as a young man? I mean, I have actually no idea how old you are. Do you mind sharing that?
25, nearly 26.
Wow. Okay. So all that being said, does that sort of make you, I don't know, how can I put this? Because when you're a young man, I remember this very clearly. I'm not a young man anymore, and I felt invincible. And I don't mean to say that I didn't recognize that if I jumped out of an airplane without a parachute, I would pass away. But it was just simply that you're not thinking about the day-to-day life. You're not thinking about maybe getting hit by a car when you walk across the street or something. And I'm wondering if there is a feeling of not morbidity, but just, I've got to make every second count. Is that starting to happen to you now?
Possibly the whole time anyway. I feel like when I was definitely more younger, there was more sense of invincibility, of just, fuck it, you do whatever you want, it doesn't matter, it's it's me against the world or whatever. 25, it's still, it's not all the way there, but I think as the years kind of go by, as the months go by, you do kind of think, I have to give it everything. There's no second chances at this. Don't waste the time that you're given. And every time I look back, I'm like, you go, oh, I wish I'd done that. Oh, I wish I'd done that. And I think I try more now to not have those regrets and stuff, and to do everything I want to do and do everything to the best that I can do, rather than get to maybe next year I'm like, oh, I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have done that. Saving money, fucking money when I was younger, and now it's like, oh, Jesus.
Are you finding out that the music business is not a place full of money waiting for you?
Not until you get higher, I'm afraid. It seems to be you have to do it for the music for a long time before you get to do it for the money.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing, is it? I suppose, you know, because your heart's got to be in it. It's a long road.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I don't think anybody will pay attention to anything that they don't sense that you're 100% in.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're
Oh,
truly
you
all
can
in.
tell, man. You can really tell. Like, I know it's such a small thing, but like in bits and pieces of music, you can tell, and film as well. Like, same thing. You can tell when somebody's made something because they want to make it, not because it's like, oh, I want my next paycheck. Oh, I need money for this, that, and the other. And you know, I appreciate that. You know, maybe if you're in a band, you are possibly, you know, on the knife's edge, just trying to make ends meet, but you still have to show something. It can't be a handout. It can't just be, oh, here's some money. That was really nice of you to play 3 chords. Wow, like you're amazing. No, give something, and then it will come back to you. You know.
Yeah, it used to be in America, at least, that record labels would bring on a band. They would give them, you know, a lot of capital up front to make the record and whatnot. And that band would, of course, take that and then pretend they were rock stars for a couple of months, and then they would get dropped by the label, and then they'd have to pay it back.
There will be these massive $1 million deals and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously we blow it on prostitutes and fucking drugs before they'd even think about the record. And it's like, oh no, we've got like a week to produce this album. We have nothing. And luckily the industry's changed, and those deals don't really exist anymore. So you have to be a lot smarter with your money, which stops you doing these stupid things so that you can focus on what you need to do, you know?
Yeah. As everything unfolds, it's happened in a way, it seems, very quickly for you. And at least in the States. Okay, so let me maybe say it a different way. For somebody like me who listens to a wide variety of musics, you know, different styles, different genres, I'm going to stumble onto it no matter what eventually. That's the kind of person I am. But, you know, in America, we're starting to hear this and we're saying, wow, where did this come from? You guys have been around for, I think, 4 years. Is this correct?
In this incarnation, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You know, we had bits before, but we like to try and pretend the 4 years is the that's when everything started, kind of thing.
Right. And the new album, Within Each Lies the Other. That is the correct title. Am I right?
Yeah.
All right. So that just came out.
Yeah, man.
And so all of a sudden it's game on and the wheels are spinning.
It's happening so fast as well.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that feel inside the band?
I don't think we've all quite processed it yet. You know, I don't think that anybody ever thought, oh yeah, this is going to be cool. This is going to be, wow, everyone's going to like love it and stuff. Like we just wrote some cool songs that we kind of liked, and we thought, oh, that'd be nice. Like, I hope that it does well. We hope it does better than it did before, which was, you know, but then the closure did okay at the EP from before. So we didn't, you know, it wasn't like, oh yeah, fuck, it's going to be the biggest fucking thing ever. Like, no. Like, but it's turned out nice, and everybody seems to like it, and that makes me feel good, and it pumps me for the future and stuff.
Yeah.
Me, and they're like, oh yeah, like it's amazing, like you're the hottest band of the year and everything. I'm like, oh, are you sure? Like, I don't think so. Like, I appreciate it. It's very sweet of you, but I don't know. Maybe I'm cynical. Maybe.
Well, you're too young, too soon to be cynical. but I do understand. There's this really strange thing that happens where you stop being a musician and you start being a celebrity. And that is hugely disconcerting to people.
Feel real though. How can I be a celebrity? Nobody knows who I am. Like, I know it's like on the small scale of blah 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 blah, and then it builds from there. But like, it doesn't feel real.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, if you think about it now, especially with the proliferation of bands on YouTube and you know, all these other social media outlets, you can't help but be immersed by the things that sort of pop. They're just going to be poured over the top of you, like, you know, like a hot cup of coffee. You're just going to hear it, and it's never going to stop. And you have, because you're youthful, and because a lot of bands that preceded you have decided to just kind of stop. You know, not, and I don't want to compare you to Paramore. I'm sure you've heard it, and that drives you crazy. Yeah, you know, okay, because we have a girl singing and we're a hard rock band. Okay, that's just
Same
exactly
thing.
like
Yeah.
Paramore. But there is that space that's been sort of abandoned, at least temporarily,
Mhm.
and you're perfectly parked to take it.
Which is nice, and I think also that's just the natural way that things happen. You know,
Yeah,
bands, they rise and they fall, and new people take their places. You can't do it forever, I suppose. I
yeah,
mean, some people try. You know, I mean, Metallica is still fucking going. I can't. I mean, fair dues. Where fair dues is like Jesus. They've been gone forever. You know, but then it's like, who's going to take that place when they do finally go? I don't know. Maybe it'll be some other band that's not even formed yet. You know, and they're gonna come round.
yeah. No,
It's, I don't
I
know.
do think about bands that haven't been discovered yet. There
Mhm.
are obviously there's so many, and there's so many talented musicians that will never be heard simply because they weren't in the right place, or maybe they didn't have enough work ethic, or they thought just technical ability would get them famous. You know what I mean?
Kind of like, it's a shame. Sometimes I see people who make really good music, but they don't have the maybe the networking, or they don't have the drive to really kind of sell it and stuff. And I'm like, oh God, you've got an amazing voice. Like, I love all these songs that you do. And they go, yeah, like, it's cool. I'm like, what do you mean it's cool? I'm like, you could be a fucking superstar. And they're like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
and you make it
Yeah.
because it's like, I don't know, or it's not happening, or oh, I need money. I can't devote myself. And I'm like, but you've got something.
Yeah.
Like, you've got that X factor. But
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. We're getting a lot of feedback. I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting cut off. Are you getting cut off on your end too?
no, you've been solid as a rock for me here.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's
Me?
just so distracting to me that I feel like I'm just constantly talking over the top of you because
No,
I
not
keep
at
getting
all.
these weird bounces.
It might. I don't know. Maybe it's my internet is
Nope.
not sending it over or something. You know.
It's not your fault, Adam. Really, it's just fine. I just feel like a massive unprofessional right now, and everybody's going to be hearing this going, dude, what the hell?
It's fine. We'll edit it. Nobody will ever know.
You know what? I'm going to leave it just so they wonder, like, what's it really like behind the scenes? And I'm like, it sucks behind
Things
the
like this.
scenes.
It's really
So
funny to find the magic. All the
yeah.
little things people would never even think about. You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm in my living room. I've got 4 lights and all this stuff, but the reality
Well,
is
you'd
it's
never know.
just
You
a
would never
fake
know.
setup.
Like, so I just love how fake everything is. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
fake in a bad way. It's like it's a show, isn't it? Like, it's never going to be this. Like, when you watch TV shows, like, it's not fake per se, but obviously a lot of effort goes into making it the way that it is. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, we're creating a world for people to experience, and it's not necessarily what they think it is.
Yeah, but then sometimes reality's boring. Like, who cares? Like, let's enjoy the not make believe, but you know what I mean. Let's enjoy the show for a bit. Like, it doesn't all have to be, oh, you can't like that. Oh, blah, that's not in reality. It's like, who cares, man?
Yeah, well, that's actually why this is good, warts and all. This particular show is going to be probably our biggest show ever, simply because it's so messed up.
The way it goes, like, as soon as you put the mistakes in there, everyone's like, oh, it's amazing, it's so cool. Oh. And it's
Yeah,
like, oh, please don't talk about it.
yeah. I'll make sure I do it in the intro. That way, everybody knows it's just going to be a clusterfuck, and it's okay. What are your personal early influences as a songwriter and as a guitarist? I'd love to hear what turned you into Adam Kerr.
Jesus, I mean, like, do you want to talk? Do you think unconscious or conscious? Because I think, you know, I think I got a lot of stuff from my dad as I was growing up, because he loves Meatloaf, he loves Foreigner, he loves Thin Lizzy, he loves Oasis. Like, as I've heard all these rock bands, he loves Bryan Adams. I love Bryan Adams.
Awesome.
And that's all that kind of stuff I had growing up in this kind of classic rock vibe. And obviously, that's not the same kind of music we write, but I'm like, what makes that classic? How can I apply that to what I do? Because okay, you can follow a trend and stuff, and there are loads of bands that do that and stuff. You know, Load are a perfect example. They've spawned a lot of new bands, and they all try and copy them. but they just sound like Loathe. I'm like, just do your own thing, man. It doesn't have to be, you know, you can. And like Loathe is great. I love Loathe, and they do some stuff, but it's like, just because this one band's done it and they're trendy right now doesn't mean they'll be trendy forever. Gent's come and gone, you know.
Yeah. And yet there are genty qualities to your music, and you would say that, but gent in America is still rolling, and it's because it's because it never really happened here.
Oh, okay. So you're kind of getting it after us in a way.
Oh, I mean, you know, the one thing, of course, have you been to the States ever? I mean, physically,
I have been once. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's massive.
It is. The thing about America is it seems to me that the music business wants to make it here. I mean, it makes sense why you would want to break here, because we do have that sort of Hollywood machine that will push everything even farther. And yet, most of the great material is coming out of Europe, and especially even Scandinavia. That the northern part of Europe, basically France up, is where all the great stuff is happening, but it's not penetrating North America. What we want here is Beyonce. We want the basic sort of surface level, and don't get me wrong, that's fine music too, but we want very safe, unprovocative music. And I want, personally, I want to be poked and prodded and forced to listen to something new that stylistically challenges me, or that melodically, you know, makes me think, oh, okay, they approach this from a different angle rather than the traditional thing, the safe thing.
But you know, sometimes the safe thing hooks people in, and then you can give them the crazy, you can give them the wild, you can mess about with it. You know what? The thing about you talk about America is basically like, if you crack America, like that's it. You don't have to really worry about anything else, just because the market is huge and the place is massive. There's so many people. Like, you know, there's about, if you think about Architects, for example, they were massive here in the UK. Obviously, they're from here and everything, but they had like nothing on in America, and you just think that's so bizarre to be like this massive band here in Europe and it just not crack America. But if it had been the other way around, if you'd been massive in America, who cares about Europe? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you've made it because everybody follows what America does, you know. And it's weird on this side of the pond sometimes, where we like things that you guys don't, or sometimes you guys put something out and then we go, oh, that's really cool. And we would never have thought about it, but because America like it, the rest of the world kind of follows suit a little bit, even though they're behind in a way, you know. Which is like, kind of, I don't know how it works. It's magic and it's cool, but I don't know how it works.
I thought, I mean, I'm much older. I'm 54. I might even be older than your father. I don't know.
No.
but the point is back in the late 70s and early 80s, everything that was happening in the music business was coming from the UK. Everything. The punk, the new wave, it was all coming from the UK. You know, you Thomas Dolby and, you know, ABC and Ultravox and all of these bands, they were really changing it. But it wasn't until American bands started copying what they were hearing in the UK before all the other bands happened. And what's interesting then is a band like Ultravox gets lost in the shuffle, but they're the ones that started it.
Oh man, but that happens all the time.
It
blows my mind. Like, it's almost like you're too early for the wave. And I just think that's like, that doesn't seem to make any, it doesn't make any sense anyway, but like, I just think that's really crazy how that can happen.
I think it's labels. I think they really do control more than we think. I don't think it's just payola. Are you familiar with that term, payola?
No.
Okay, so back in, I want to say the 60s, early 60s, record labels were paying radio stations to play their material.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And it was a big deal. And you know, so they were buying their number ones, right? But eventually it kind of came out that this was happening, and the record industry basically sort of got flipped on its ear, and Billboard, for example, opened up, and it stopped being top 10 pop songs, top 10 country songs, top 10 whatever, and it became everything, meaning Garth Brooks all of a sudden is number one and number two is Metallica.
Yeah.
It was a very strange thing. And it's because of that sort of anti-payola stance where everything, was pulled into one basket. I don't know why I'm talking about this outside of to say that it's. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, like what you're talking about, I think it's really cool. Like but it's almost happening with Spotify, I think, a little bit, because they're kind of dominating the market in a way.
Yeah.
But they kind of have control over, because obviously they have their own playlist with all the followers. They're in control of who gets to be on what, and obviously the labels will be in their pockets because it makes sense for them. For Spotify, if their band brings more streams in, then they're probably maybe more likely to get more money from ad revenue and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense in that way.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have the same thing. Maybe Spotify will get too big and too greedy, like the labels did, and then something else will come along to sort of topple it.
Yeah. From my own experience, because I was a former professional drummer. Mm-hmm. And so from my own experience, if you weren't playing shows, you weren't making any money.
Yeah, I think that's still true now. Possibly even more truer now. I'm not sure if that's a word, because so much more of the way that people listen to music is through streams and stuff, as opposed to physical CDs and stuff. You kind of need to play the shows to put the money in your pocket.
Yeah. Well, I think about all of this, and I think about all the different paths that we have to get here. How did you guys discover each other? Was it just childhood friends? Were you three separate bands sitting in a rehearsal studio and you all heard each other and got together? What happened?
Do you know what the weirdest thing is there's a website. I don't know if you live in America. There's a website here called joinmyband.com. Okay.
It's awesome.
Right. So me and the original guitarist, we had a thing going on beforehand. And John Cassidy, who's our keyboard player, who used to play drums for us back in the day.
Okay.
We all had something going together, and we would, jamming and doing tunes and stuff. And we were kind of like, we had George Hunt as well, who was a friend from school of Alex Payton, the old guitarist. We were like, oh, we need to find a singer. How do we find a singer? Joinmyband.com. And then we found Charlie, and we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Somehow it worked. And then even later down the line, because John left us, well, he didn't want to play drums anymore. He was like, I want to play. He was like, I think he kind of wanted to leave, sort of thing. We were like, we just play keys. Like, you don't have to leave, man. Like, Jesus. And so we went on joinmyband.com again, and we found Liam Burgoyne, the drummer from Closure, and he joined. And then he left, and then we went, okay, we'll go back and joinmyband.com, and we found Jamie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like a mix, the beginning of sort of childhood friends and blah blah blah, and then just this website, which sounds really stupid because I guess it's like Craigslist almost, just for bands and stuff, working, which I don't know. That seems like the most ridiculous thing in the world to find people that everybody agrees on the same thing, everybody wants to make the same music, and it work out on a fucking website.
Yeah, I mean, but it makes sense. I mean, it might seem silly, but that's the point of the website. And and some of the greatest marriages in the world have come from dating sites. So you really never know. You either fit or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems clearly like what we're hearing and seeing that you guys all make sense. Are you all really close friends? I mean, are you finding that you're struggling now to get to know each other, that things are starting to happen? There's a lot of pressure on you. Is it affecting you in any way?
No, not really. We think this, but also we've been told by other bands and stuff that we're kind of like a family. We were all very close as friends as well as musicians and stuff. But we're also all there for each other. I don't think the pressure at the minute doesn't get to us. That's not to say that in the future, possibly there'll be other factors that do make it more difficult. But at the minute, the pressure feels good. Yeah. We feel really productive. Like we feel like we're on a bit of a roll, and it's all kind of working and stuff. And I think, I can't speak for everybody else, I kind of like a little bit of pressure. That kind of gets me in the drive mood, I don't know about you. It's like, if there's something on the line, it's like, okay, I have to bring my A game because is important. You know, it's more than just I'm writing some tunes. It's like, cool. This is somebody's asking me. They want you to do a new album. They want you to do this. What can we give them? How good can we make it? What's the pinnacle? You know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's an energy to that. I mean, who wouldn't be excited to be in your situation? You've
True.
right. You're basically hitting on the dream so many pursue and never have the chance to do. You know,
Yeah,
there's a beautiful secret that happens, and then there's this small group of people that are tastemakers that say this is what you should be listening to. It's actually the point of my podcast is to I am not BBC or CBS radio where I am going to 10 million people tomorrow are going to buy your CD or download, I should say.
Yeah.
I just showed how old I am. But I do think it's important that people like me latch on to you and help people like you break out. You know what I mean? And it has to be exciting. I can't imagine how it feels.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you said, like, it's not really about, you do see these like 5-minute wonders and stuff, and they go on The Voice and they go on blah, 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 blah. And they do that and they're great. And and BBC plays them and everybody else fucking plays them. And then that's it. Like,
yeah.
There's something to be said about actually grafting and grinding and meeting real people who you have a connection, you can actually talk to and share experiences and share music with. That's kind of what it should be about, not just, oh, we're the biggest fucking thing, we're gonna make you a superstar. Like, if you believe that, if you've seen the stuff recently with Jedward calling out Simon Cowell and his label and everything for basically being horrible,
yeah,
like, what do you think is gonna happen, man? Like, it's hard work. It's not just click and then you're famous. Woo.
Yeah.
No, come on, man.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, which is what do you want to be, a successful musician or a celebrity? Because it's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. Not the same thing. But you can use them in either way. Lil Nas X is a really good example of using the celebrity thing to push his music. One before by basically being this amazing cowboy guy, and now he's flipped it on his head, and he's like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna be a gay guy. I'm gonna show you guys that, like, I'm gonna make hell cool. Like, fuck you. You told me I'm gonna go to hell for my life. And now I'm gonna do it, and you're gonna hate it." And he's made this massive statement.
Yeah,
and it's pushing the music, and I think it's genius. But
well, it's what everybody does, though. Negative publicity is still publicity.
Exactly. Obviously, you don't want people to be like, you're an arsehole too much. I think there's you can have a little bit, but as soon as it's too much, it's not good for. It's not good for the brand, I don't think.
Yeah. It's like pro wrestling. It's a character.
Of course, this is the thing, man.
You guys are nice guys. Lil Nas X is a bad guy.
But that's how you play it. But like in real life, he's probably the fucking loveliest guy in the world. But obviously, to sell the records, you have to be the bad guy or whatever it is,
It's absolutely true. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, were you, as a songwriter, were you influenced by Queen?
I think a little bit.
Okay.
Probably not as much as I could have been. Okay. Like, I kind of came to them a little bit later on. But I really love the way that their songs could be so cinematic, and they tell they tell a story. And I think that's really important in songwriting, because fucking anything, but like it has to mean something. You have to feel something. It has to be, And Freddie Mercury had that. He had, and everything he did was from the heart,
Yeah.
And I think that's inspirational.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because of what you just said. It comes out. Well, if you listen to the new album, there's, I'll pick 3 examples. Wallow, Hiding from Myself, From the Inside. 3 radically different types of music. One is basically, and I'm going to be kind of breaking it down in simple terms here. One is kind of super genty. One is more of a hard pop song. And then, I mean, for me, From the Inside is almost like it's emo meets EDM. You know what
A
I
little
mean?
bit, yeah, a little bit.
And what Queen did was they went like this to society. They said, we're going to play this type of music, and then we're going to do this type of music, and they're not going to mix, they're not going to match. We're going to do Crazy Thing Called Love and Dragon Attack on the same record, and we're going to make you deal with us. And what I love about this new record is I believe, is it 10 or 11 songs? But it's literally all different. I mean, sure, there are the connecting tissues, and Charlie's voice clearly makes it, makes it obvious that, okay, this is the same group. But you get a very radical experience listening to this album. And that's exactly why I brought Queen into the picture, because it seems to me that it requires a fearlessness or maybe a naivete to do it.
True. I just think it's fucking boring otherwise,
Yeah.
I mean, God, one, I think, you're really limiting yourself if you just pick one sound and you do it forever. Two, you're going to bore the hell out of yourself and your fans. And three, like, God, that can't be fun, man. Like, because it's almost like having a gimmick in a way, and then every single song you just do the same gimmick. I just don't.
Yeah.
Then you can never do anything else. And then if you want to do something else, you'd have to do a new band or a new project or whatever just to do this song that you really like. And then but then I don't understand who it's for then. Like if you're just writing this cookie cutter tunes, who's it for? Like it can't be for you, obviously, because surely you must have a broader taste in that. But it can't be for the fans, because surely at one point they will get bored of you doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know who's it for. Why are you doing it? Just do whatever you want. Like, who cares?
Well, I think when it does happen, it's because of what you had mentioned earlier, that bands are seeking commerce way more than they're seeking the art.
True.
No,
that's very true. I suppose it's a very safe choice, isn't it? If you know that a one sound makes money to do the same sound.
Except it doesn't eventually.
That's true.
Right? And yet, if a band like Radiohead makes a radical shift in another direction, they lose half of their fan base because we wanted it to sound like OK Computer and you gave us Kid A. And that's not fair, because that's a complete FU to a fan base. And yet it's considered to be the most important rock record ever. Kid A is, because it flipped the landscape. It literally made everything a safe, I should say not safe. What's the word? It basically flipped everything over and said, nope, all bets are off. We're going to do whatever we want. But it opened it up for other people to do the same.
It did. It's a hard thing for you if you've never implied in your music beforehand that you're going to do that. It's a very risky move, because you don't know how the fans are going to take it. Either they're going to love it or they're going to hate it. That's the only way it's going to go. And sometimes if they hate it, they will leave you in droves. They will. And this is something we've seen as well with Data Remember's new album. They've gone a little bit more country, and a lot of some fans are happy, but a lot of fans aren't happy, because there was no inclination of, we're going to do this, we're going to try this and do stuff. But I think if beforehand you'd have done a couple tunes like that, then people would be, oh, cool, okay. It's a sound we've heard before, and they're expanding on it. That's really cool to then hear, almost the bloom of this seed that you planted before. It's when it's out of nowhere that people just don't like it. And I think that's something that we always think about as well, is that we don't want to be boxed in. If I do a little bit of this, then later on we can do a bit of that. It doesn't. If you're always unpredictable, then you can always be unpredictable, because nobody. But then it's fun as well, because then you don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't fucking know what I'm going to do next. The next one could be the heaviest thing you've ever heard. It could be the most ballady thing you've ever heard. That's kind of fun. But if you don't know it's coming, and every album has been the same, when you do it, it's like, it's like a shock. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe you've changed your sound.
Yeah. Well, the DNA's in there, though. I mean, really, when you're talking about it, and I don't want to reduce the value of any member of the band, but it seems to me that if you have the same core, the same songwriter, the same vocalist, things are gonna kind of mix in the wash, right? They're gonna make sense to the fan base, and as you advance and mature, they're going to say, oh, like you said, they're going to hear that sound sort of develop into something a little more. Muse did this when Radiohead switched off and became electronica.
Yeah.
Muse stepped in and said, we're going to become Radiohead. They totally did. I mean, if you listen to their 2004 release, Absolution, my God, man, that's like the continuation of OK Computer. It has there's a pop element, but there's a progressive element. There's all those little things, and yet by the time they get into Black Holes and Revelations, they're starting to become more atmospheric and more poppy. And then they start introducing Prince type elements, and yet they've maintained the arpeggiated keyboard stuff that has been a part of their signature from ground zero. I imagine the same thing will happen with you.
Think so. God, if I'd love to be as big as Muse, that would be something, because they are fucking massive.
Yeah,
and they write amazing tunes. And the bass, some of the bass lines,
so sick.
I remember he started on bass, and I remember when I first heard Hysteria, and I was like, I have to learn this. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I have to learn this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but you think Matt Bellamy's voice also grounds everything as well. He's always been quite almost operatic in a way.
Yeah.
Which has allowed them to do everything that they've done. But also, so this is something I was thinking as we were talking about it. It's like, it also comes back to what we said before, is that as soon as Radiohead changed their sound, Muse just took the spot.
Yeah.
And that comes that cycle of as one band moves up and then falls, you can argue whether or not they fell or not,
Yeah.
Muse came up and took their place, where that maybe if Radiohead had released a similar album, Muse wouldn't be where they are today, because there was no space in the market. People would just go, oh, it's not as good as the Radiohead record, and then they would never get to where they are today,
Yeah. Well, but then that leads me, and that's the whole point of my question, is that leads me into what space are you taking over?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's the Paramore's. Well, I think the problem is that not necessarily a problem, but we don't know what space we're taking, and so that possibly makes it more difficult to pinpoint where the music should move.
Mm-hmm.
Because if, for example, we say, oh, we're going to take the Paramore space, the obvious choice is, of course, to get more commercial and to get a bit lighter and to lean into that pop punkier sort of side of it. But then if it's somebody heavier, maybe we're moving into a more of a space that Flyleaf had, then you want to have more screams and you want to be a bit more nasty.
And that's the space you should be going, my friend.
Yeah.
I think. Look, I will never tell you what to do. I'm not your manager. But I would say that I love what you're saying. Well, first of all, your response is spot on, because that's exactly the answer. And it's not just the answer I'm seeking. Mm-hmm. It's the correct answer. There's always something.
Yeah,
but I love what you're doing. Don't switch. Mm-hmm. Don't try to fit in a box, but do what you love. When all bets are off, look, you already know all this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but when all bets are off, if the only thing that's going to make you happy is what you're doing, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. We'll all follow you. The reality is we'll all follow you because we love what you do. And if it changes so radically, that's fine. I'll find a new sort of band to fall in love with. And then this other group of people who have been waiting for you to come to them will now embrace you.
But that's just how it goes, isn't it? Like you can't force it to happen.
No.
It has to be natural, No.
Yeah, I was going to ask Charlie if she was deeply influenced by Lacey Sturm.
I think she's a little bit, definitely a little bit. I know that we try and avoid it a little bit, but she's definitely influenced by Hayley Williams a lot.
Of course.
Because growing up, that was her idol of seeing, as was a lot of people's, And so she learned a lot from there. And I definitely think was we talked about this before. I think Lacey Stone was a big one as well. For everybody, like I remember hearing "I'm So Sick" for the first time.
Oh my God.
Holy fuck! I know that that's the big one, and I know that some people are like, "You don't know any about." It's like it's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Courtney LaPlante. I don't know if I'm
Okay.
saying that, from Spirit Box. Man, she's fucking paving the way.
Yeah.
I mean, her screams are unbelievable. And if you watch it, she's got a couple. If you haven't checked out, I honestly recommend it on YouTube. She's got some one take vocal covers, like vocal performances of her tracks. And it just looks so effortless,
Yeah.
you know. And even maybe Charlie had some influence before. I know that even now it's like to have these people in the same scene and genre as you. I think helps drive you to be better because it's like, oh God, like all my peers are so good. I want to be on that level as well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I would never compare, Charlie to say Tatiana from Ginger, because that's a radical departure. But what I do love from a band like Ginger is that they are sort of popularizing something that's really never been popular, which is this extreme metal thing. And what I love about you guys is you figured out a way to keep that element, but it doesn't stay in this darkness. So your songs go through this really cathartic, wave pattern where they're set up, they're bookended really well. They start small and then they get really big and then they maybe drop off, or maybe they start really big, get really small, and end really big. But you guys have figured out the roller coaster. That's just what I wanted to say.
I think sometimes. I think we had a couple. I remember there was a podcast that was they were talking about the album, they were reviewing it and stuff, and I was listening just because I like hearing what people will say, and I love it more when they'll say something possibly negative or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I thought that as well, and I wasn't sure about X, Y, and Z or whatever. Oh fuck! What were we just saying about? Oh, because I've lost my train of thought. Oh.
It's okay. I do this all the time.
No. Back for the break. There was two guys. One guy was basically he hated the end of Grayscale mainly because it does what you said is where it's it kind of starts small and then gets bigger and it goes because it ended really big. I say big, breakdowny big. He was like, I hate it, and I was like, one, I kind of feel you because when we wrote it again, I was like, oh, I don't really want it to. I'm like, it's such a nice song. I don't think he really wants to have one. And then George said it should have one, and so it now has one. But the whole roller coaster thing is that what he was saying as well is that when you want a breakdown, we give you a breakdown. When you want a chorus, we give you a chorus. And I think one of them was like, it's like, oh, there's too much fan service in the thing. I was like, to who? I'm like, we wrote the songs for ourselves because we're like, that's what we want it to do. Yeah. If I was listening to a song, where do I want it to go? What do I want it to do? I don't think that's fan service, but that's part of the roller coaster thing of if you get on a roller coaster, how do you want it to go?
Up and down.
You fucking want it to go up and down, didn't you? Like, sometimes I want the end. Sometimes I want to go on a roller coaster for a little bit, and the highest bit is at the end, and it's like, oh, I'm like, you're like, oh, it's nearly over, and you go, oh god, I've got the last climb and the last drop, or whatever it is,
Yeah,
that makes it fun. That makes the roller coaster fun.
Well, it's interesting that you said that because there's a very famous roller coaster in Cincinnati, Ohio, called the Beast. And when it was made, so this is apropos. When it was made, it was the world's longest roller coaster, and it has 2 lift hills, which is very bizarre. And so you go up the hill and you ride and you go through the woods and you do the whole thing. And at the very end, it takes you up another hill and it drops you down this huge corner, and then it's over. And everybody goes like, "Oh my god, that's so weird and different." And I'm like, "That's exactly the point. Kick me, man, hit me hard."
But that's the thing, and it's like if you've never been on it, the unexpectedness of the first time of being like, "Are we fucking? Is it going to go again? Like, are we about to like do the?" I just think that's cool.
Yeah.
I want songs to do that. I want roller coasters. I want life to do that. That's fun. It keeps it interesting.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Boy, I'm going to be editing the shit out of this.
No, you'll have a lot of fun with it, I'm sure.
Fortunately, I got some time to do it right, so we're good. Charlie said something that I wanted to quote. Initially, I wasn't sure if I was going to be speaking to you or Charlie, but she said something really great that made me, write a lot of questions around it. She said, I quote, "This album represents the very best and worst of ourselves, our sadness and our vengeance, but in balance, also our happiness and self-discovery. We cannot always be the best version of ourselves. We must travel through the pain and anguish to develop our best self, a you that has learned. This album focuses on the concept that which is above also is the same of what is below. Balance the pain and happiness, center yourself, and learn from it." I know Charlie said that and you didn't say that. But when you hear that, how does that speak to you? What do you think when somebody reads that to you?
It's almost like words that, how do I, it's almost like hearing words you've said that you've never said. It's something that exists within you, but it's not your own voice in a way.
Yeah.
I think because we've been together as a group for quite a while, and we've been friends for quite a while, we've all kind of shared our experiences, and we've all probably had quite similar experiences as it's gone. And to have that connection in that way, I think we can all relate in things, because the same stuff that Charlie writes vocally, I write instrumentally. And then they just fuse together nicely, I suppose. And I feel like it's the sort of quote that makes you take a second and stop and just think and just digest and ponder, man. Because you can't always be on the top of your game. You can't always be at the bottom of your game. Life, again, to come back to the roller coaster, life does this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't focus on yourself always being at the top. You can't focus yourself always being at the bottom. You just have to be this person that goes through life, that does the highs, does the lows, and then bring it together to be a complete person.
Yeah.
You can't be a complete person with only half of yourself.
Yeah. That's great. I love that she said this, because it's actually quite provocative.
Mm-hmm.
For me, how I read it, going through my lens, is really radical, because it's not what you're thinking, I guarantee you.
I'm excited, man.
No, it's wonderful. I love this, because this is the point, right? This is the point of art and feeling and creation. And when she said this album focuses on the concept that which is above, my brain immediately thought of God. It thought of faith. And then as she said, also the same as below, it came to the idea, I'm not talking about satanic, it came to the idea of being challenged by darkness, and saying, how do we mix the real world with the spirit world? Or how do we mix what we want for ourselves compared to what we are? Am I on the right track?
I agree. The right track of what?
Well,
because I think
what she's saying, maybe.
Well, but then why does that? If music's so subjective and everything, it doesn't matter if it's what I think it means and what you think it means and what Charlie thinks it means. They can all exist simultaneously and both separately.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer, and that's the answer.
Man, it is, music's so subjective, and this is something we've talked before. Is sometimes I've misheard lyrics that she's said, and they resonated with me in a certain way, and then we've gone to record them, or there's been like an album book or something's happened or whatever, and I go, it's not the lyric, is it? And she's like, yeah, and I'm like, she's like, the song, what I thought it meant just means something else now, but the song will still mean that to me, but obviously it's not I suppose the artist's vision in that kind of respect. But art's subjective, man. If it makes you feel a way and it makes you feel something, then that's the way it is. That's what it's meant to do, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you, when I read that paragraph, and then I read, as an example, one of your lyrics, we all dream of an everlasting paradise where we feel safe in our own heads. Hiding from myself, the shadows are watching over me, conscious numbing out, but no one believes me. That to me is a perfect lyrical example about what she had said previously, which actually totally feeds my theory about spiritualism. and so my brain is like, I mean, it's so funny how we all look at things so differently. And I'm not trying to make this a religious conversation in any way. I am a very faith-filled person, but I am not a religious person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I always seem to find spiritualism influencing songwriting processes, right? How we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our family, how we feel, what kind of love are we receiving? What kind of love are we missing? Which those two things seem to emphasize and create almost every song in the world, how we feel about ourselves.
But that's, what else do you talk about?
Yeah.
What other story are you trying to tell? Because surely your experiences will then come out in your music or your art and whatever it is you're trying to make. It's got to be something, because otherwise, what else are you going to write about? Like all this, what's the fucking word? All the shallow. No. Otherwise, you just think about all the shallow stuff, isn't it? You just talk about possessions and lust, I guess. Like, what else is there? If you're not talking about your own experiences, what else have you got to say?
Yeah. How do you feel about your personal role in the band? I mean, I ask because I'm a drummer, and there are certain aspects that, say, a drummer is responsible for. Certain rhythmic patterns, maybe having influence on the song's arrangements, or Charlie as a front woman might be focused on certain melodies or lyrics. But what is your real role? Like, I mean, have you found who Adam Kerr is?
I think so, but it evolves as we go and everything. I don't want to be. I don't think that I would say I'm the heart of the music, because I don't think that's fair. I would possibly say that I am one half or one third with the new stuff, with John becoming much more involved in that process, which has been lovely. But I feel like it definitely beats through my veins quite a lot. I can't imagine. It feels like my baby sometimes,
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like my role is definitely more bigger picture and music based. I feel like that feels good to me. I like writing tunes. I like obsessing over music and seeing how it should sound, how it should go, what I want it to feel. Because I mean, especially on this album that we've just got, basically all the instrumentals is me. John's done his synths on top of it, but it's finding space in between what we have. There's the odd, of course, when you go to a group, especially with 6 people, there's bound to be different ideas and there's bound to be different stuff. And so when we play with each other and everything, but the main bulk of the skeleton will be me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's detrimental because you become too attached, possibly, to an idea or a piece, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Like, I'm happy in my role. I feel good in my role.
I love your role. I mean, I'm not even in your band, but whatever you're doing right. I mean, clearly, I mean, if it's, if it was in a sense sort of 50-50 until recently.
It's weird because it's not, it's 50-50, but not quite in the way of like, I don't know, because the 50-50 split is a weird, not like a 50-50, it might be like a jagged 50-50 or something, because it's like, let's say, for example, I write a song, we do it. Charlie would then come and put her stuff at the top and everything. And that is technically the other half of it. But it could exist without it in some ways, but then it could exist without parts of me as well. It's Sorry, that's a bit of a waffle. I've just gone off on one a little bit there. But
No. I mean, it makes sense. I get it. There is no cut and dry in songwriting anyway. I
No,
mean, there
it's
might be in the initial creation of a riff or a phrase, but once you put it in a band's hands, it's gonna evolve like that.
oh yeah. But then I thought it's really, really hard to say percentage-wise what's the bit. I'm 50% of this track. And you
Right.
could be, I mean, I could sit here and be like, I wrote all the music, for example, and that could be for me is 50%. But then if everybody that listens to it, the vocals are the only thing that they latch onto, the music is secondary, then does that still make me 50%? Do I then become 33% because I'm being overlooked by the vocals and the vocal melodies?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Maybe it's I don't know.
it'll make it quite challenging when it comes time for royalties.
That's very true. We've had a little. We don't do it by song because it's too much faff. We do it like it's overall, in the grand scheme of things, it's this. You're about that. Cool. Because otherwise, you sit there, it's like, I did this bit, I did that bit, I want more of this. Blah, blah, blah. It's just a headache that we don't need.
Yeah.
So sometimes you win some, but sometimes you lose some. It's
Yeah.
No,
I understand that. Well, what's next for As Everything Unfolds? I mean, you have the new album out.
Yeah.
You're doing all this press and promo. The coronavirus has obviously sort of held you back. Are you going to be doing any, streaming shows? Any touring plans? Anything coming up that hopefully you'll jump into?
I can't explicitly give you the details about that, but you could definitely. I would definitely look forward to things like that coming very soon, but I can't leak the information just yet.
Gotcha.
I wish I could soon, but not soon enough. I will say, because I like to, is that we've already started on album 2. We've got about 10 tracks.
Wow.
There's some cool stuff in there. It sounds more mature. It sounds a little bit more. Some of it's nastier. Some of it's more catchier. Some of it's just more of this. But I don't mean in a case of just quantity. I mean more of, oh, you like breakdowns? The whole fucking song. There you go. Oh, you like catchy stuff?
Yes.
And I want to show you. And there's one track that we've got that I'm begging to release, and
I'll give you my email. You can send it to me. I want to hear it now. You're killing me, man.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm just really excited about it, and people like you make me feel good about it, and I hope that you also will feel good when you get to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's such a tease. I'm so sorry.
No. Look, this is exactly what I'm seeking. Like I said, look, I don't see myself as anything extraordinary. I just know what I love. I love the idea of being a tastemaker and turning people onto new things. I talk to a lot of younger bands, upcoming groups, because, I want people to know about them. Not everybody's going to be, Air Supply or Susie Quattro. You know what I mean? You have to start somewhere. But what you're doing is really extraordinary, very powerful, and a lot of fun to listen to, Adam.
I really appreciate that.
So my last question for you, and before I say my last question, I want to say thank you, because this has been a very chaotic call, and you've been wonderful and kind, and all the weird noise dropouts and hiccups and so I'm so sorry about that, but thank you for your patience.
Mate, I'm just happy to be here. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. You're gonna crush it, brother. Okay, so my last question for you, as a young man, what does legacy, especially musical legacy, mean to you?
Oh, everything. It's so important. It doesn't have to be, but like, to me it is. I want to leave my mark on the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a big one. It doesn't have to be, not everybody needs to change the world. Sometimes you just have to make people feel good.
Shadows, they're watching over me.